It's good to have you here once again at the next event. My name is Buhle Hlatshwayo, as it's also said on my name tag. And we're right here at the Accolades Boutique venue right here in Midrand for the 5th annual CESA YP Imbizo conference taking place right here, which includes many key speakers who are here today to bless many young engineers and many young South Africans with their words of wisdom. Without any further ado, let's see what they have in store for all of us.
We will begin with a proper welcome from our YPF chair. In session 1, we will be honored to have Professor Douglas Boateng advising us on how we can raise our voices as young engineers and be more active and assertive in our industry. I have the pleasure of introducing Professor Douglas Boateng. He is a CEO of PanBest International and Partners. He is a professor at UNISA School of Business Leadership. His CV is long, so I'll just summarize a few points so he can tell you more about himself. He is an international professional, chartered director, and an adjunct academic. He is independently recognized as one of the vertical-specific global strategic thinkers on procurement, governance, logistics, and industrial engineering. This is in the context of supply and value chain management. He plays leading academic and industrial roles in supply chain strategy development and implementation, both in Africa and globally. Professor, I don't think I've done you justice. You can tell us more about yourself, but we are honored to have you and we welcome you. The stage is yours.
My message in Africa right now is to try and work on the mindset of the youth. As Bob Marley said, you got to liberate yourself from your own mental slavery. Africans, we have so much to offer, but unfortunately we are cocooned, and imprisoned in our mind, and that has to change. Degree does not make you successful, it is your attitude. Always remember that. My presentation today, can you hear me at the back, my young brothers? By the way, is there any politician in the room? I always make this joke when I do my presentations. I was in Nigeria and I called there's no politician, I hope. You laugh, but you never said yes or no. After my presentation, I called my politician friends, distinguished, honorable. There was a guy at the back who was so annoyed and he confronted me. First I said good morning, and then honorable, and then distinguished. After the presentation, he came to me and said, but what is good about this morning? And secondly, what is honorable about politicians? I hope I'm not offending anyone, but these days, you know what has been happening on our dear old continent in terms of our politicians. Are they honorable or not? You have to judge for yourself. Now, the presentation today is called The Inconvenient Truth. I've done this presentation all over Africa, and it's for a reason. I want you to open your mind and not think about just today as an engineer. Think about tomorrow. Be a bit selfless, not selfish, because that's the only way that you'll be able to build a future for the African child. My vision in life it took me about 20 years to get to where I am, but now I'm being supported by quite a few institutions, and I always acknowledge them. The Airports Company of South Africa, Chartered Institute of Purchasing and Supply, the Government State Procurement Forum, the Institute of Directors, South African Supply Diversity Council, and many more that supports what I'm doing in various universities, including Stanford University in the US. My presentation objectives, colleagues, is to try and encourage you. The best of South Africa and the rest of the continent is yet to come. Be positive. I know there's a lot of issues. It's the experience. There's a lot of noise in South Africa right now. After January, believe you me, things would obviously start picking up again. When you have a negative mind, you never get yourself to be a positive thing. You become very, very myopic in your thinking, and you have what I call the blame game. You've got to have a positive mindset. It does make a difference. You always have to appreciate how far you've come, colleagues. Because when you appreciate how far you've come, you are able to move ahead. I always maintain that if South Africans, they are able to appreciate what they've managed to achieve in the last 30 years or so, you know, the world is the limit for them. And it wasn't done in isolation, it was done by the people, you. But unfortunately, sometimes the pessimism, you are your own worst enemy. And I tell the politicians that, you know, whatever we decide today has an impact on the future. You realize that? Yes. But sometimes we become so selfish and we forget that tomorrow will ever come. And that is what has been happening in our dear old continent post-independence. Short-term thinking. I call it the short-term gain, the long-term pain syndrome. Who am I? I'm a Pan-Africanist. And when I say Pan-Africanist, I don't mean going to seize land and all that. No. I believe in inclusive growth. I believe that our forefathers did a lot for us, and it's our duty to also do that. Pan-Africanism means all-inclusive development, irrespective of color. A black like me is an MP in the United Kingdom. You go to the US, you see them. Africa is not just for the people of this color. It's for all of us, and we have to develop it together. I chose South Africa for a reason, because of my Pan-Africanist views, and I follow what is happening when I move from the UK to South Africa. I could have stayed anywhere on the continent, because I add value. It is about value add, not color add. I could be in Stanford University, but I'm in Africa. I could be at Oxford University, but I'm in Africa. Any institution, go on to Engineering News. This week you see a major announcement by the government of Ghana that I'm now the chairman for the entire country's procurement authority because they want to industrialize. But I chose to stay in South Africa. I'm an engineer like yourselves. Don't worry about the gray hair, your turn will come. You know, it's about value add. When you add value, you can live anywhere you want. If you don't add value, then you have excuses. My mother taught me, push as hard as you can. Be the best at whatever you do. You are going to have obstacles in the way. Don't see that as stopping you. See them as guidelines. I'm a fan of an inclusive growth because I don't believe that you can have such disparity within society. But it has to be done right for sustainability. Not just for the few. It's about inclusive development. I know my politician friends, you know, they use a lot of words that sometimes frighten people. Radical. What does it mean? For me, it's about progressive transformation. They mean well, colleagues. Unfortunately, sometimes they panic and they use the wrong words that tends to obviously frighten people. It is about long-term focus and performance-driven. It is about value add. I have a passion for human capital development because everything is driven by the human being. Yes, there are computers, but were the computers not developed by human beings? So skills for me is critical. That is why these days I spend most of my time on human capital development. I've paid my school fees, I've been a CEO, I've done whatever I have to do, but for me it's about human capital. And I'm hoping that with time you also would obviously focus on developing the skills which Africa needs. The best of Africa is yet to come, believe you me. There's so much that we can do, but it's the people that will drive it. You know, I've mentioned about problems. There are guidelines when you encounter problems. You shouldn't stop when you encounter problems. I know you're having your CVs around. You've been applying for so many jobs. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. It doesn't mean you have to give up. I never gave up, and there are so many of us. You can be better than me because you have much more resources. You just have to open your mindset and think positive. Towards the end, I will share with you your mindset. I just wrote a note there. You've got CESA. Why do you call it CESA? It should be SEA. You know what SEA means? Consulting Engineers Africa, not South Africa. Because you need to be able to apply your skills all over the continent. Free up your mind. When you think African, your market is 1.1 billion people. When you think South African, your market is 60. Think big. Don't think too small. Africa, we are all linked. Is there any ocean separating the continent? No. From Guguletu to Timbuktu, the problems are all the same. That is your market as an engineer. But sometimes we are cocooned. South Africa. No. If I was to think that way, that I am a Ghanaian, I wouldn't be here. In 1999, I brought 50 million rands into South Africa because I'm a Pan-Africanist. And Cyril Ramaphosa was my chairman because I believe in Pan-Africanism. We have to work together. I was on a plane to the United States and I met an American, two old people sitting next to me. They asked me where I was from. I said, I'm from Africa. They got confused. Why do you say you are from Africa? I said, I am from Africa. And then for a couple of minutes, they asked me again, are you from Africa? I said, yes. And I asked them, where are you from? They said, I am from America. The US. And I said, but you never told me that you are from Chicago or from San Francisco or from wherever. You said, I am from America. I am from Africa. And I'm proud to be an African. Today we are friends. I always maintain that we need to start creating African brands made in South Africa, made in Kenya. We're talking about proudly South African. Now Kenyans have started proudly Kenyan, proudly Ghanaian. Who's going to buy from whom? It should be proudly African. When you pick a product from the US as engineers, you develop a product. When it's developed in the US, do they say made in Cincinnati? Made in Chicago? No. They say made in the US. When you pick a product from China, do they say made in Beijing? No. Made in China. Now it's made in India. Now when it comes to Africa, made in Swaziland. I mean, Swaziland is a big country, very big. You know, but we got to start creating major African brands, and you are the key to this. The reality, colleagues, of the continent, it is growing. You know, the population has been growing. It means people are not sleeping, obviously. You know, things are happening at night. We've grown a lot. South Africa as a country has also grown, without a doubt. Nigeria has grown, Kenya is growing, Ghana is growing. Most of these countries are growing. There are challenges. And most of these things are being driven by the consumption of what? The people, the 1.1 billion people. But the unfortunate thing is, the engineers, product developers, unfortunately are not very active. So what happens on the continent? Most of these things are what? Imported. My claim to fame, obviously, was my research on ladies' underwear. Not taking them off, please, don't get me wrong. I researched ladies' underwear because ladies spend a lot of money on underwear, at least those that wear them. these days are women that don't wear underwear for comfort. I know that. I ignore the men's one for a reason, because I spend a lot of time in the gym, and when I look at my men, they think I'm looking at their asses. I'm looking at the underwear they are wearing, and sometimes they leave them. Men don't care about underwear. That's why they leave them in the gym, but ladies do. I know what you wear, the reasons why sometimes you confuse men, sometimes I know everything. Ladies spend so much money on underwear, but where does it come from? Most of you don't even know what you are wearing, where it's coming from. And for me, my argument, which I wrote about and now has been sponsored by various companies, including AXA, the books that I write on these things. If only we can even produce our own underwear, just imagine the jobs that it will create for the continent. We spend ladies, over $600 million US on underwear. Multiply the 600 million by 13, 7.8 billion on underwear, and it's being produced somewhere. Engineers, you need to come up with something for the continent. Socks. I remember when these issues of, the fanatism came through. Men and our socks. Sometimes we forget even there's a different colors and we still put it on. When men get to the airport, before we did not used to take off our shoes. These days, the socks that men wear is so interesting. You have your toes sticking out, but these days you can't do that if you travel. Because when you take off your shoes at the airport, people will see that your toe is sticking out. Now, how many socks do we wear on the continent? Who produces them? It's coming from China, India, and so forth. Where are the engineers? We are not building our own continent. We are not creating our own jobs. It's not the government, it is us. It got to the point where certain countries, like Ghana, they are importing toothpick. And I ask myself, why? Toothbrush is coming from outside the continent. Where are the engineers? These are simple things that can fuel job creation. But it relies on engineers to come up with products for the continent. That's why I'm saying the best of Africa is yet to come. We've been growing, but intra-African trade is very, very small. It's growing. For me, I'm a perpetual optimist. It will come right. Yes, there are issues with logistics, but Rome was not built in a day. For me, the exciting thing is that more and more women are beginning to also play a role in terms of the economic emancipation of the continent. Industrialization is on the agenda. That is why I was appointed to look at these things in the Western African sub-region by the president. Manufacturing is not doing well, but as engineers, we have a role to play. I'm an industrial engineer, but I moved into management for a strategic reason. Now, as engineers also, we just buy. We don't strategically source. A lot of the things that we use in our operations, we just buy. We don't strategically source, and this is one of the challenges that is facing the continent. Now, there's facts. That is why South Africa, as one part of the continent, I'm so proud of. You've maintained your top 50 status despite all the challenges. Industrialized country in the world, despite all the challenges. You are very strong in agro-processing, mining and construction, nutraceutical packaging, tourism, there's a bit of a confusion there, but still doing well. ICT, financial services, you are among the top in the world. Chemicals and detergents, without a doubt. But the sad reality is that you are your own worst enemy. You focus too much on the negatives. What has gone wrong? as opposed to what has gone right. Last week, Thursday, I was in Zanin. I drove to Zanin. And when I was driving to Zanin, I reflected. When I got to Polokwane, and I had to turn to go to Zanin, 80 kilometers. And when I was driving, I was just reflecting. You know what? I just slowed down. And do you know what I was looking for? Potholes on the road. I couldn't find any. And I said, but why are these people complaining, my brothers and sisters from another mother? You are moving forward. You should be showcasing this. I've traveled the world. And I know roads. But South Africa is always the negatives. Negatives. And you know what does to people's mindset? They also become agitated. And they want things like yesterday. That is why these days you have a lot of demonstrations all around. Of course, I know what is happening with that name. I don't want to talk about that name. But that is insignificant in terms of what you've managed to achieve. You as engineers need to be able to also be positive, be optimistic. Share these things that it's not all that doom and gloom. Because being positive and optimistic also gives people the patience that their turn will come. But if you don't, and it's always about the negative, I want mine today because tomorrow I will not be there, correct? And this is unfortunately what has been happening. As a country, how many of the population know that you've managed to maintain your top 50 industrialized status to date? These are success stories that need to be shared. I mentioned this pessimism breeds gloom, doom, and anger. Society is angry because they don't see anything. Some of these positives are not coming out. You've got to take pride in how far you've come and have faith and how far you can go as engineers. For me, the cake is so big, it can be made even bigger by yourselves. You just need to free your mind. These problems were created by us. It can be resolved, as Madiba said. Africa is not poor, but I hear my politician friends talking about us being poor. Of course we are not poor. We live in poverty. There's a difference. And the poverty was created by us. And we can correct it. There are so many, God has blessed us with so much. If you want snow, you come to Cape Town. Go to the niceness of this world. If you want suntan like me, you go up north. Closer to the equator. What more does Africans want? The cake is big. You know, the hard reality. That's why I call my presentation the inconvenient truth. Real and sustainable economic empowerment cuts across all races. It's a fact of life. It is about value add and not color add. You might be able to get into a job because you are black like me today. But believe you me, it is not sustainable. It is not. If you don't add value, sooner or later, you'll be out of the window. So as engineers, see yourself as value add, as upcoming black engineers. Don't be, what I would say, be confused with the issue of value add and color add. See yourself as adding value. If you add value, the world, or the sky as they call it, is your limit. You don't need to see yourself, I'm not saying please migrate out of the country, no. All I'm saying is you have to position yourself in such a way that the world is your limit. Today I do what I want. I wake up when I want. These days the focus is trying to get rid of my pregnancy. So I spend a lot of time in the gym. It's difficult. Your turn will come. But thanks to my mother, tomorrow if I want to go and live in the US, they are not going to say no. If I want to go and live in the UK, they will never say no. I'm in South Africa right now. I'm very critical of what is happening. But they see I'm adding value. I'm developing the people. That is how you need to position yourselves. Human nature is a fact of life, but sometimes we refuse to accept it. We do business with who we trust and who we are comfortable with. It's a fact of life. When you go out there, you are going to meet people, you are going to meet colleagues you'll be comfortable with. You will deal with them. When they see you as bringing value, they are more comfortable. When they see you as coming because I'm black like me, they might entertain you for a short period, but afterwards, they will start gossiping about you, and then obviously you'll be out of the door. Black economic empowerment. Colleagues, the government did not define BEE as black economic entitlement. It is not. It came out from the policy document basically to help you to empower yourself, not to be entitled. The youth that I engage with right now, unfortunately, sometimes they believe they are entitled. No, I say it as it is. Entitlement, it is not sustainable. You have to be able to fish yourself. That is the key to being successful in life. If you are waiting for somebody to put something on the table for you, they will give you what you want to eat. No, what they want you to eat every day. I always say that, in life, when you want things for free, you pay. What is happening in South Africa is not new in terms of wanting things for free. It happened up north. You know what has happened to the educational system there? It's virtually collapsed. If you want things for free, eventually, somebody pays the price. And it will not be you, you might get it for free today, but your children will suffer because the infrastructure will collapse. And this is what has happened up north. There's a difference between free education and subsidized education. Subsidized education is more sustainable. You pay some, I pay some. But if you want it for free, where is the money going to come from? South Africa has a population of 60, depending on what you read, of which virtually over 50% live in poverty. The tax bracket is so small. Now you want free education. I'm saying, let's think it through, if it's possible. BBB has not achieved this agenda because the structures, political and citizenry mindset to support and sustain the implementation of the agenda was not in sync. And it's happened everywhere on the continent. We have some of the best policies. As CESA, the NDP, all those came through. But the sad reality? The people were not ready, so were the systems. What we inherited from our colonial masters, we have not changed the structures to support the transformational agenda. So there's been a lot of, what you call this disconnect between what we want and how we do it. You are the future. You need to challenge these things and be able to say, this is not working for us. So we've got to change the structures. I always maintain that we should not be thinking outside the box. We should rather throw the box away because you don't know what is in the box and what is the reference point. Africa as a continent and as 55 nations, we tend to adopt rather than adapt. There's a difference. When you adopt, you just take it and implement. When you adapt, you tweak it. We have a tendency to adopt rather than adapting. Transformation is a must. It has to happen. But it's how we do it. We have to have respect. As engineers going out there, respect the institutions. You have to be value-driven and not color-driven. You have to believe in inclusive growth. I always say, I know a lot of you, the bank balances are a bit low these days. You just finished university, so, and you like the beautiful things in life. But be very careful. Don't be driven by money and the paycheck. Be driven by your passion. Because when you are driven by your passion, believe you me, eventually the money comes through. If you are driven by the money, what happens is you get it today, but tomorrow it will not be going up. What I do, people don't understand why I spend so much time and effort doing what I believe in. It pays me because now people believe in what I do. If I was driven by money, believe you me, I wouldn't have been in Africa. I would be somewhere in San Francisco doing my stuff. But my passion right now, I'm able to make the money that I lost some time back. What is required, obviously, from all of us, we are all professionals here, is the issue of, working together. It is a must. But we need to change our mindset. Critical that we do that, because if we don't, we are not going to achieve the progress that we want. Radical transformation. I know you hear a lot of these things, but is it really radical or is it a must? Sometimes, the choice of words can be very dangerous, to trying to get people to liberate themselves. For me, it's about progressive economic transformation, not radical. It is a must. They mean progressive, but they are using the word radical. Because when you listen carefully to what they are saying, they are not talking about radicalism. Radicalism is serious stuff, believe you me. They want progressive transformation, but it's a choice of words. Elections are coming up, so they need to say things, to really excite people. But they mean progressive transformation. For me, I've always maintained that you need to, obviously, rather than raising your voice, improve your argument. We should not be feeding the fears because it doesn't help anyone. We all lose if the country explodes, We've got to be very careful with the choice of words that we use. There's a tendency in Africa, the politeness. Rather than talking to each other, what do? We talk about each other. Anytime I go into the gym, and they wonder, why does a black like me spend so much time in the sauna? My pregnancy, obviously. But as soon as I walk in there and I sit, everybody keeps quiet. When you come out, you go and sit to take a break, they start talking. And I said, but let's talk, let's engage. Once we engage, we understand each other, we respect each other, and we can grow. We don't do that. It's about talking about, not talking to. We've got to change our mindset. Even in your workplace, when you go there, try and engage. Don't wait for them to go out of the room and then you start talking. The good old ladies, they say it's gossiping. No, talk to them. That is what I've done. And it's working for me and my kids. You are part of this successful transformational agenda. Engineering is key to the development on the continent. And you are part of this transformation agenda. You need to be able to feed into the government's agenda. And the only way you do that is to raise your voice. As consulting engineers South Africa, you got to raise your voice. Let the government know that you have a part to play. Now, who are you? The key. Who are you? What is it that you stand for as an engineer? What is it that you can deliver? Don't go in there because you are black like me. No. It's the value that you want to bring. They should see you as bringing value. Once you are able to do that, life becomes much, much easier for you. You need to engage. Stop the talking. Act now before it's too late. You need to be seen as being action man. You know me, if I believe in something and there's an issue, I deal with it. When I saw strategic sourcing was an issue, I wrote a book. I did my research. Today, this is the only book in the world produced in South Africa that is being read by academic institutions. Harvard, Stanford, MIT. You go there, you see my books. And it was done in Africa, in the part of the continent called South Africa. And I made a reason, and I took a calculated risk. And I said, this book, I'm going to put in there. Those that are going to win this book, go to page 4, you see this, proudly African. Because I wanted to show the world that it is doable, we can do it. You can do better than what I've done. You have more resources, but you need to think big. You need to think African. The sky is the limit for you. We are all part of it. Pink, black, blue, white, we are all Africans. It's all here. Let's not define Africa as just being for black like me. These days I call myself dark chocolate because I'm not really black. No other whites, they are not white. White is not white. They know their color. I know mine. But that's not me. For me, it's about the value that you add. So I work with my white brothers. I work with my black brothers. I work with anyone that brings value. And they also work with me because I bring value. And that's how, as an engineer, you see yourself. I'm an industrial engineer. I sit on many corporate boardrooms. I advise governments. Majority of my students doing doctorate, they are white chief executives. I have some of the most powerful chief executives in South Africa calling me. A dark chocolate like me, because they see my value. And you can do much, much better, colleagues. And my brothers and sisters from another man. There's only one person in this room that could be in my age group, and he knows it. The rest of you, I think you are younger. He's sitting on my right side. Yeah. What can you do? You have to build trust and confidence. It's very, very important. You've got to do that. Let people believe in you. You know, Muhammad Ali, was he the greatest boxer? He wasn't. But he made people believe that he was. So there was a psychological advantage when they got into the ring. Is Apple the best phone on the market? No. No, it is not. But they've made us believe that it is, and people are prepared to pay a premium. Is Mercedes-Benz the best car on the market? No. But we are prepared to pay a premium for it. It's a mindset. I was part of a program at MIT on the automotive industry, and it was very interesting when I toured around the various manufacturers, and I realized that, very interesting. Most of the parts that go into all these cars come from the same factory. But we are prepared to pay more for the brand. Mindset. Liberate yourself from your own mental slavery. Colleagues, you have to change yourself if you want to be successful, if you want to make an impact in society. The limit is not in the sky, the limit is in your mind. Be very, very careful of that. You know, when you don't grow, it means obviously you are not being challenged. These things do happen. See it as guidelines, not stop signs. Mentor fear. It's worse than being in prison, believe you me. You can do better as engineers for the continent. Just believe in yourself. You know, I mentioned this earlier. If you think South African, your market is only 60 million people. When you think African, your market is 1.1. My market is not South Africa, my market is Africa. So today I'm here, tomorrow I'm in Tanzania, you name it, I've been all over. That is my market. It's the same market for you as engineers. I live here, I apply my skills. I've been here over 15 years. I apply my skills anywhere on the continent. You can be living in Timbuktu and also working here. Nothing is stopping you from doing that. I wouldn't advocate you leave the continent and go and live in California, no. Live here and apply it everywhere you want. Your skills is needed. Why restrict yourself? We can all do this together. We have to collaborate. Academia is part of it. Plow back into society. I am doing it. You can do even far better than me. You need to help government. You know, don't be, you know, don't think that you can have political and economic emancipation. They are linked. We achieved political, now it's time for economic transformation, and that needs the engineers, because you build. Hopefully some of you would be able to come out of being pure engineers into management, and then you'll be able to become directors. There are different. But now I'm in directional stuff, leadership, because you need to be able to encourage what is happening at the top for strategic reasons. What I do is not for me. For me, it's about 2063. Of course, I will be gone. There are certain people that don't want to go. There's one, our neighbor, you know, but whether he likes it or not, his time will come. You cannot beat it. He's going to go. 2063, I will not be around. It's a fact of life. But for the future of the African child, I am doing what I'm doing. You can. Some of you will be around 2063. You need to respect governance. Please don't discount the importance of corporate governance. Incompetence. You know, in Africa, it's part of the learning process. Have you seen anybody resigned of incompetence? No. People don't resign, nor are they pushed. Your generation will change that, because you believe in performance. You are going to change it. You need to be innovative. Come up with products that would service the continent, not just South Africa. You know, transformation, you need to be able to, I'm hoping that once you get out of here, you'll be able to talk to your colleagues about what transformation really means. You know, you need to be able to also mentor. Don't keep things to yourself. Mentor your colleagues and even the people after you. You need to be able to work together. There's a tendency in Africa that black people don't like to work together. They set up their own companies, you know, and also be focused. Because I used to chair the Airports Company, Enterprise Development Fund, Airports Company of South Africa. It was very interesting when the brothers and sisters from another mother came through in terms of the companies that they created. Even one person calls the company Industrial Holdings. What are you holding? There's nothing there to hold, but you call yourself Industrial Holdings. Keep it simple. We need to learn to keep things very simple. Simplicity works. My food for thought colleagues, you know, sometimes we tend to be politicians. But for me, change starts with you. If you don't change yourself, you cannot change society. You know, don't always think about what might go wrong. Think about what might go right. You are not losing anything if it goes right. You know, the smallest step in the right direction can end up being the biggest move that you ever made. Positive thinking is the key to success in life. I'm not saying that I'm successful. I've still got a long way to go in terms of my goals, but at least I'm on the right track. And it's because I add value as an engineer. You can do the same thing, and even better. In conclusion, if you want to go far and fast, you go it alone. But believe you me, I saw this at the airport. It was very interesting. You go as a collective, you go very far. Alone, you will go and then you run out of petrol. Always remember that. I work as a partnership. I work with people and I learn from them. They also learn from me. Don't think somebody's going to steal your ideas. So you want to keep it to yourself. You know, and then you have all these confidential things. Let's sign this and it doesn't mean anything. Because if the person wants to steal it, he will still steal it anyway. It's about trust. When you trust, you are comfortable to do things. You know, before, when all these contracts came through, I always argued that nobody wins. When these things came through, let's sign these contracts and so forth. Contract, in the first place, what is it? It's like something's going to go wrong. Therefore, let me protect myself. And I always use this simple example. I meet a woman that I want to marry. And then I say, you rub this woman down the wrong way. Hey, it will take you to cleaners. Let me have a contract. What does that mean? It means from day one, you are thinking that something's going to go wrong. That is the reality of today. You know, because I was part of the Japanese automotive sector revolution. You know, the Japanese, they didn't have any contracts with their suppliers, the Nissan, Toyotas, and so forth. It was a handshake. I believe you. These days, the contracts, no, the Latin words, we don't even learn Latin, but it's in the contract. And then we sign it as engineers. And when you sign it, and then something goes wrong, say, hey, did you read it? I read page 1 to 10. Page 15 to 250, I could not have found time to read. We need to learn to trust. I believe in specificities. Let's agree on the specifications. Once you agree on the specifications and you shake hands, that is more important than thinking about what is going to go wrong. It's all in the mindset. In conclusion, finally, there's hope. Always think about these kids. Because whatever we do today has an impact. And the kids are not just black like me. All of us in this room, irrespective of color. You have to make their future fair. In Kosi Africa. Thank you.
Right now, I'm with the CEO of Paninvest International and Partners, Professor Douglas Boateng. Professor, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, and so for today's session, mainly you focused on the importance of adding value as well as opening one's mind to ensure positivity for oneself and for everybody. How important is it for young engineers and for young South Africans to possess such a quality?
Thank you. It's important because right now in the world that we live in, it's become very complex. And for young African engineers to be able to navigate themselves in this complex world, they need to have a free mind. They need to think very positive. They need to be able to face the challenges without having this hindrance within themselves to say that I cannot do it. Of course they can, but if you don't have a positive mind, you are cocooned in your own world, which doesn't really help you and also society at large.
And what lessons would you like each and every engineer attending to take from your session?
I believe engineers in South Africa should think African, because when you think African, your market is 1.1 billion people. They should not just see themselves as basically qualified engineers to work in South Africa. They need to be seen as qualified engineers for the entire continent, because there's going to be a lot of infrastructural developments on the continent, and I believe these South African up-and-coming engineers have the opportunity to make a difference to the continent and also make a lot of money out of it. There's nothing wrong with that.
And lastly, before I let you go, Professor, how did you find your experience as one of the key speakers at today's conference?
My experience as a key speaker at this conference gives me a lot of hope in terms of the future for the continent. I believe the young engineers will be able to make a difference. There's a lot of optimism from this conference, and I'm hoping that they could expand their tentacles into the rest of the continent so that there'll be more visibility. They should see themselves as a brand and also trying to make a difference to the future of the African child.
Right. Thank you so much for your words of wisdom, Professor, and we wish you nothing but the very best with the future.
Thank you very much for having me.